Today I'm going to talk about a very sensitive topic, and that is attachment styles through the perspective of Caribbean history. I'm going to focus on disorganized attachment and how that could have been cultivated and popularized by colonization. I'll do that first by reading a haiku from my book, Psychology Haikus, and then we will talk about it from the perspective of Caribbean history, which is important for all of us to know. The haiku goes, life is a war zone. Who is a friend? Who is foe? I just do not know. So, you can imagine war zone feels like understatement to what was happening in the Caribbean during colonization times. And the people that were enslaved were treated like animals, chattel, that was what they were called, another name for animals. And men, women, and children of the same family, of the same place of origin, they were separated. Families were separated and sold. So in attachment theory, where we learned in the last video that attachment is not just a privilege. Love is not just a privilege. Love is a biological necessity for survival. And when the colonizers split up the family, they essentially had an emotional genocide of every enslaved person. And what happened because of that is still experienced in today's world. So when the enslaved people were split apart from their families and sold to different plantations, they were in a sense raised by the plantation owners. So their attachment was to people that were abusing them. So we all have this desire for love and connection. But if the person who is housing you, clothing you, and feeding you is also abusing you, then you develop what is known in psychology as disorganized attachment. Your desire for love is mixed with fear, and it forms a subtle belief. Now, the belief is crucial in understanding this, because a belief is like the soil of your mind. All of your thoughts, your words, your actions grow out of the soil of your belief. And if you've been raised in a particular way, the conditioning that you get in childhood founds the foundation of this belief, the quality of the soil. And people that were enslaved, very likely they developed a subtle belief that love equals danger. And this is the heart of the disorganized attachment. This idea, love equals danger. So beliefs are not formed just overnight. Years and years and generations have crystallized this belief into Caribbean culture, norms, society, family life, friendships, schooling. Every facet of our culture has been influenced by our traumatized past. And if we look post-emancipation, that means after the people who were enslaved were given freedom, we can see that this style of love continued, even though the plantations weren't directly in power. Their belief systems were still in power. And this was seen in our family life. So Children were still beaten for obedience. Parents are still using fear to control. Parents are still only rewarding productivity and profit. Where do you think that came from? It's like the sayings, who don't listen, go feel. Isn't that, can you just imagine a plantation owner saying that? That sounds perfectly aligned to the script of a plantation owner. And then this one, I beat you because I love you. Now, I am not against correction. Children need to be guided as to what is right and wrong, especially in the early stages of life where their impulse control is unregulated. They need to be corrected. However, abusing a child is not correcting a child. You are teaching them what love is. And if love is beating, well, you are going to be the source of a problem that's going to happen much later down the road when this person tries to love someone else. So that is disorganized attachment in a nutshell. And how do we break this intergenerational pattern? First, Bob Marley say, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. None but ourselves. So we need to first have compassion for ourselves and our ancestors. And understand that there are some things in us, these dysfunctional beliefs, that are not our fault. We need to acknowledge that. Guilt and shame are not going to be effective in this form of treatment. Although it's not our fault, it is our responsibility as individuals to correct this. So we need to identify the patterns. How does this belief system manifest in my life? How does it manifest in my romantic relationships? How does it manifest in my relationship with my parents and my siblings, with my friends? If you are a teacher, how does it manifest with your students? You have to know your shadow, and very often we can't see our shadow because it's behind us. So this might require, a really good thing is if you have someone that you can trust, that you can talk to about this, to go deep into it, and they may be able to provide insight into you. You know, that is half of what psychotherapy is, you know. Talking to someone and discovering things about yourself so that you can change the pattern and continue and stop this inner programming. If a computer is programmed in a particular way and it doesn't have the capacity to reflect and change its coding, it's not going to change. It may dress up in a new frame or you might get a new background, but the programming is the same. So the same problem is going to occur over and over again. So in order to change this pattern, we have to look inside into our coding, our belief systems, our behaviors, our thoughts, our words, our actions, and understand those deeply, because understanding brings change. So you might ask yourself, where did this pattern begin in my life and in my ancestry? You might ask yourself, who taught me this? And how did they teach me it? You could ask yourself, this is a big one, when do I behave like my parents? Right. Become curious, not furious. Okay? Because we may feel so ashamed that we are like this and we can't help ourselves. We just keep having violent outbursts. We keep getting angry. We keep running away. But instead of becoming furious, which doesn't contribute, doesn't help you, become curious. The last two things. We have to begin to know what our values are and what we want in relationship. What is good for us in particular, uniquely you. What is good for you in a relationship? And then we have to go like a sifter and sift out the people in our lives who are not aligned to this. You're going to lose people in your life when you begin the inner journey. But just like a mango tree, unless it's pruned, the bird vine gonna swallow you whole. And what is better? A mango tree that friends with the whole forest but covered in bird vine and then it's dead, or a mango tree that has removed the bird vine and can provide fruits for others. Yeah, this is a big part of breaking this particular attachment style. We have to choose healthy relationships. We have to walk away from unhealthy relationships. We need to give loving distance. Now, Trinis, I can speak for Trinis. And let me just talk Trini. You don't have to walk away like a badger and burn down the house behind you and the whole bridge and the whole neighborhood and mash up the person's reputation. You don't have to leave with a big bang. You could leave peacefully and with respect and with proper closure. And by doing this, you are honoring yourself. You may say, I want to stay in this relationship for the other person. However, there is another person in this relationship who's been neglected, and that is you. And the more you deny and neglect yourself, the worse your inner turmoil is going to be. So that should give a good overview of historically how this attachment style has developed in our country, and some ways that we can use to break this generational pattern, because when you save yourself, you save your bloodline. When you save yourself, you save your bloodline. So that's important. That came from my book. That haiku came from my book, Psychology Haikus. It's available on Amazon. If you want to support my professional work and my creative work, you can buy the book. That would help tremendously. And I am a psychologist from Trinidad and Tobago. So if you need psychological services, if you want to talk, just send me an email and we will take it from there.